Washington. She's a political advisor and geopolitical analyst. Rina, so good to see you. So it took thousands of flight cancellations, 42 million Americans at risk of losing food assistance, and 43 days for the Republicans and Democrats to finally pass this bill.
This shutdown was really egg on the faces of Republicans at this point. The Republicans being in the controlling seat right now, as the incumbents, we're starting to see that this shutdown, despite their best messaging attempts, was working against them. With this record shutdown, also what we saw was more Americans suffer than in previous shutdowns. The last one we saw was also under Trump, but that was just a sheer 30-some days. Here, where we crossed towards the 40-day mark, is when Americans felt not just the pain with those flights, but with food assistance. And when we talk about food assistance in a time where the economy does not feel very positive, I think you started to see that backlash grow, particularly in very red areas. And Republicans knew that they had to come to some kind of consensus. But ultimately, I want our audience to know that it was Senate Democrats that activated this process. It wasn't a Republican kowtow, essentially, to Democrats.
And Rina, I mean, I understand that we might see a repeat of this shutdown in January.
Well, look, we very well may, but one thing is for sure is that Trump's approval ratings have been sinking, particularly on the economy, and then that real cornerstone issue of immigration. He is underwater despite his administration's best attempts to look like they are active and really tackling the issue of immigration in the form of everything, raids to deportations to confrontations in the Caribbean. You name it, the Trump administration is doing it on immigration. They did not expect such bad polling at this point in the presidency. Of course, on the economy, they did expect some. But one thing I want, again, to emphasize here, it's that Trump's honeymoon just cooled very fast. We saw his net approval dipping, and I think that really puts things in perspective as Republicans look to move towards the holiday season and begin a new Congress in January. Do they, again, want to risk this gamble and make not just Trump, but themselves back in the hot seat as the midterm elections approach? In January, we will see House members going out on the trail again. So what we do not want to see for Republicans is them having to be on the defensive and them having to, again, tune out all the noise that they've had to deal with for this past 8 weeks that they were not in session.
Rina, if Donald Trump has become some sort of a liability for the Republicans, then why do Republicans continue to do favors for him?
Well, I think it really goes back to just truly how tied the branches are. I think our founders would be aghast at the state of things as they are right now, because you don't really see Republicans in the House using their power to check the executive. In fact, what we're seeing is Trump lean into acts that are essentially executive overreach, and that can be proven by the vast number of legal cases that are being thrown against him in courts at all levels, all the way up to the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court last week heard arguments regarding tariffs, the constitutional legality of those. Has Congress ceded too much power to the executive? So it is a fundamentally bizarre moment, but we've been getting to this moment over time. Congress has abdicated its duty on many things, such as war powers, and we have seen the executive branch grow even stronger. So Trump has taken advantage of that. But the Republican Party has done one thing, and I think Democrats can see this really well over the past decade. They have remained very unified, and particularly approaching a midterm year where they want to retain their majorities. You're not going to see Republicans fall out of that lockstep with the administration, because they all, at the end of the day, this is very important, have to raise money together. The more they stay in unison, keep that chorus singing nicely together, one doesn't fall out of order, the more money they can raise to keep their seats together. And that is unfortunately why we see the system functioning the way it does right now.
Fascinating insights. Rina Shah, thanks very much for joining me here on TRT World. Really appreciate your taking out the time.